You're listening to Radio Free Flint. This is Arthur Bush. Welcome. Today's episode guest is Gerald Haan and his daughter Katie from Michigan Lumber. Welcome to Radio Free Flint, Jerry.
Thank you.
Jerry, you're now the owner of Michigan Lumber.
That is correct. About a year or so ago, my cousin Chuck decided he had had enough, so we purchased his interest from him. And now my side of the family is the owner of the company, yes.
Tell me how Michigan Lumber got its start.
It's kind of an interesting story. My great-grandfather was in the log and lumber business up in Manistee. And this is about 1905 or so. He sent three of his sons down to Flint. He had heard about the carriage companies in Flint and how the carriage companies consumed so much lumber. So they sent the boys down there to see if they couldn't start something up with these carriage companies. And of course, as you know, the carriage companies transformed themselves into the automobile companies that exist today. So in the beginning, they were trying to sell lumber to carriage companies. And of course, as GM began, there was more and more demand for lumber in the area, both industrially and as well as the homes that were built throughout the county.
Would it be your grandfather then that started the company?
Yeah, that's correct. The formal start date, I think, is 1916. They were down several years before that in the lumber business, and they actually sold coal too. The original name of the business was Michigan Lumber and Fuel Company, because at that time it was fuel oil and coal.
Your family had dealings with some of the historic figures of Genesee County. Do you know some of those people that your grandfather had contact with and worked with?
Well, my grandfather certainly had friends of people like the Hamidys and different people like that in the home building business as well as the grocery business. Really, all of the people in Flint that had businesses, as well as some of the General Motors executives. I remember my grandmother telling me at one time, she lived till she was over 100 years old, and we were talking about Flint once, and she said how the GM executives used to stay. They would have roots in Flint, and therefore they become part of the community, and that enriched the community so much. And she was comparing it to the times in the 80s, I guess, where the executives for General Motors would, they'd be in one place for 2, 3, 4 years, and then they go on to their next assignment. And she could feel a difference in the city. But many of their friends were there in the beginning of GM, watched for generations.
Michigan Lumber essentially built Flint because during the 20s, they had a big housing boom.
That's right. Yeah, it was really Michigan Lumber Company and then Flint Lumber Company as well down by the river. Two different businesses, but we did. My grandfather tells stories of going out in the afternoons, calling on home builders around town. Then the next morning, getting the loads together and going to deliver them to the home builders.
How did the business survive the Great Depression?
The only thing I can say is it was well capitalized and well managed. I tell you what, when you look at the last 110 years or whatever we've been around, it's amazing that we've survived all the different things in Flint. I think that the people we got working for us play certainly a huge part in it, probably the most significant part. Back then businesses didn't leverage themselves much and they didn't take out much debt, and it was just slow and steady progress. And I think that mentality prepared them for times that, of course, they didn't anticipate, but just because of the natural management style, I think prepared them for those times.
The business had really diversified itself when you think of a lumber company, because your business historically has catered to General Motors as well as the local housing industry. Do you think ability to work within and to supply other industries was a factor?
Absolutely. We did, as you mentioned, we used to do a lot of business with General Motors, and it was great business. And we did it for years and years and years. In the late 80s, early 90s, that business really tapered off. To this day, I don't think there's any GM business, or very, very little, that we do. One of the reasons we've done fairly well is the diversification in our mill department. We do really well with specialty products, and that allows us to have a clientele that's maybe a little bit wider spread than a typical lumber yard. But even though we're there and we have a mill and we have these specialty products, it's amazing to us all. Still to this day, Arthur, people come in and say, I didn't know you were here. It's amazing to us. And I don't know what else we can do to let people know we're here. But we're still in the same spot.
Why did your grandfather continue in that spot?
It's interesting. They were in that spot before the interstate was built there. So at one time, we were actually better connected. The interstate kind of made us an island back in there. After that happened, I remember my grandfather saying that, he was looking at the bright side of it, and it was closer access to the interstate as far as deliveries go. Back then, a lot of our business with General Motors, so it didn't much matter. And of course, being adjacent to the train tracks for the Grand Trunk there allowed us to bring in carloads of lumber back in the day. The train tracks are not used for lumber delivery as much as they once were, but back then everything came in by rail.
The business was really strategically located in the heart of the city, which has outstanding transportation.
Yes, that is correct.
Most people would think, well, General Motors quit making, maybe General Motors never did make carriages, but they don't make wooden cars. And so why would General Motors need wood?
Yeah, good question. It's just the mere maintenance and ongoing temporary structures, shoring, and things like that are needed in factories. So a lot of the time we were supplying just normal 2x4s, 2x12s, and plywoods. They had to build a temporary wall along an assembly line or something like to that effect. The other thing that we supplied a lot of was specialty hardware, things that were on a commercial nature. We would deal with that. Then we did some really interesting things like pattern pine, which are very soft. It's sugar pine, so it's very soft. They'd actually carve it and then use it for molds for the templates of the body of the car. So this was in the design phase of the automobile. We'd also, at times, we would cut plywood to order that they'd use for shipping in between car components when they put them on rail to ship them down to Mexico or wherever they were going. We would be part of the shipping materials to keep the load sturdy during the shipping process. Mm-hmm. So lots of different things. We paneled executives' offices and we cut plywood to size to ship parts to Mexico. So really a wide variety of things that we would sell to General Motors, that and specialty hardware and things like that.
Obviously, a lumber yard has a hard time really making it without acquiring some business in the home remodeling and home building sector. To that regard, Flint's been a tough slog up and down throughout the 120, how many you've been in business, 110 years or something?
About that, yes.
It's a city that survived many, many ups and downs. There's been great amounts of housing built.
Yes, over the past 20 years or so, I would say that was during the time where the General Motors business tapered off totally. And what we found is our business was picked up by commercial contractors, as well as what I would say a custom home builder or a semi-custom home builder that starts using more higher end components in the construction of the home. Those people they come from all over today, the Detroit area as well as from the north. And again, being able to walk into a lumber yard and get the service that they can at our site, and then have the materials in stock or the ability of the mill to transform into what they're looking for has been key for us. It's a unique niche that not many others do.
In that niche, you're talking about making custom pieces of lumber.
Sometimes we rip or cut the width to a certain width of a board that someone might need. The regular dimension of lumber is set, but sometimes it needs to be cut lengthwise. We call that ripping the board, and we do that, or we'll plane the board to thickness. We also do custom moldings for those people that are renovating older properties and they want to do some matching moldings. We have the ability with our equipment in the mill to make custom moldings or to match existing moldings. We can do that with paneling as well. You know, the old knotty pine paneling that everybody had in their basement at one time, we make that in our mill. So there's a lot of cutting and planing as well as building of cabinets. We did some white oak window sashes for Genesee County Parks out at the Huckleberry Railroad. I don't know anywhere else in the country you can get custom-made white oak sashes for a model train system. My grandfather stayed in till, it was in the early 90s. He was involved with the company. Then my cousin Chuck, my older cousin Chuck, ran the business along with Howard, who was a great uncle of mine.
It was your maternal grandfather that founded the business, so it would have been your mom's dad.
That is absolutely correct. And so my mother was born and raised on Maxine Street off Court Street over by Mott College. And she was raised in Flint. Her ties go back her whole life, yeah.
Cousins run the business for a while, and now you've come and have taken it over. You've been in and out of that business for a few years. But what you've brought to the business is sort of a new perspective. Is that right?
I would say I do. One of the things that I wasn't living in Flint, my cousin was running the company. It seemed like everybody's looking on the bad side of things and why we can't make it. My focus has always been on what can we do. I tell you what, of late, it's really easy to do that in Flint. I'm really excited about the transformation that's happened there. It used to be a little bit more difficult to find positive things about the community, but boy, I tell you right now, I'm really excited about what we see there. We're feeling it in our business. Our business is good. Our people are excited about it. We've got young people working for us now that are living downtown. It's finally for sure happening. It's been long awaited.
Have these young people been trained in colleges or trade schools, or are they just learning from those that have worked there for so many years?
Mostly from learning from those that have been there. We do have a couple young guys that actually, one of them right now is being, really trained and groomed in the management sector. He's a University of Michigan Flint student, part-time student anyhow. He's a second generation employee. So his father's been with us for 30 plus years. And he started in the yard and he's transformed from the yard to the warehouse to the mill. Now he's in the office, and now he's in the back of the office in the executive offices. So it's fun to see a second generation employee grow through the company like that. And I mean, he's really excited about the future and got a huge future ahead of him, getting a good college education and being able to take some of his business and apply it every day there on Clifford Street. After 110 years, we thought we'd do some branding, Arthur.
That's probably a very good idea, maybe a little past due. With Katie's entrance to the business, this marks now the fourth generation of your family to participate in Michigan Lumber.
That is correct. Yep. Katie is the fourth generation, and she works alongside one of the other employees at Michigan Lumber Company is a fellow by the name of Tom Howie. Tommy is third generation, and so his grandfather worked for us, his dad worked for us, and now Tommy works for us as the yard foreman. That's really special.
At Michigan Lumber, it's really got a different vibe.
Yeah, and when the big box stores came to Flint, I think Builder Square was the first one, we really emphasized the fact that we do provide service and we do have knowledge, because we couldn't compete with them with pricing. I don't think their pricing model worked real well for them either, since they're not in business anymore. The one thing we had to do is set ourselves apart as far as the quality of the materials and the service that we provided our contractors as well as our walk-in, more retail customers. on one hand, the big boxes actually helped us because the big box stores, the Home Depots, the Builders Square, actually got people more involved with doing their own repairs. Generally speaking, people such as yourself that have a different profession than carpentry might need a little bit more guidance than a normal carpenter. So it really led people to us that maybe needed a little assistance in their project, and they ended up finding us and seeing what we could do, and usually had a really good experience, and they'd even drive out of their way to come to our yard to purchase.
Yeah, so we've kind of taken our website and rethought a lot of the aspects of it. We want to provide more for our customer and not just have, a landing page, and hopefully moving toward ordering online and really getting up to speed with technology. We've kind of we've been in a standstill for a while, so I think it's time. And obviously we have social media going now, which helps for our awareness so people actually can find us.
Katie, talk about we had a YouTube influencer come visit us, Arthur, and what it is this guy has a YouTube channel about woodworking. And so, Katie, didn't we invite him up from the Detroit area or something?
Yeah, Billy Newton from the Detroit area came, and we showed him the mill, and he took some videos, and it was a really great experience. We had one other person come too, so we're trying to get more eyes on our mill and all of its capabilities, but that's just one example of how we've kind of branched out, got a little out of our comfort zone.
And the other thing we've done, Arthur, is we brought on a co-op student, right? An intern type of thing from the University of Michigan.
U of M Flint.
U of M Flint, and she's helping with doing some photography and some media work with it as well. So we're starting to reach out to some of the local schools. I think we talked at Kettering as well as the University of Michigan Flint. So it's fun to get those young people involved with us as well.
Who are the customers of Michigan Lumber?
It's a good question, and I can't say for sure that I know. I know sectors of the market. I mean, first of all, we do deal quite a bit with residential home builders that are building custom and semi-custom homes. That is certainly one sector of our business. The other sector, of course, is the do-it-yourselfer. And I say this, and these people, they range. It's from everything from, fixing a door and screwing on the hinge to, adding on an addition. We're doing some decking workshop. We kind of do-it-yourselfers, but pretty big projects. Some of these people are building some big decks, but they're coming to get some guidance and some new ideas. And then, believe it or not, Arthur, we're getting crafters. We've always had people that enjoy using wood in their crafts, and whether it's building a birdhouse or a shadow box or all these different types of craft projects, many of them need wood or lumber type products. And so we have that component to our business as well. And of course, we still supply the commercial contractors as well as the manufacturing sector. When I say manufacturing, not as we did at one time with General Motors, but more of a component to maybe a window company, a local window company, for example, will supply materials to, or a cabinet company down in the Detroit area we might supply hardwoods to, and that ends up becoming an end product out of their warehouse or their factory.
Do you get any people like me wandering in asking a lot of stupid questions about how to work with various types of woods?
You bet we do. We love it. Just love it. It's always fun to watch the person as we take them back to our mill, potentially introduce them to one of the craftsmen back there. The crafter, the do-it-yourselfer walks into the mill and their eyes just explode with everything back there. Not only do we have a lot of equipment, but some of the equipment is old. It looks old, but it's still running and working. And some of the equipment is relatively new with laser beams on it. So we've got both, but to see it all on a couple floors in the mill area really gets people excited. And they could spend hours talking to our guys back there. I mean, they really are talented craftsmen. You just don't find that a whole lot anymore. Some of these guys have got great senses of humor, and they know what our customers want.
Jerry, let's switch subjects here for just a minute. Your family's from Flint.
And ended up in Flint in the 80s. when my great uncle became ill. I went to Flint, was there until about 2000. When I went off on my own and started doing some affordable housing development, actually doing it across the country currently. I'm also very interested in working on the neighborhood that Michigan Lumber sits in Flint. You know, with the resurgence of downtown and what's happening downtown, it's just so great. And of course, going to the north of downtown has gotten a lot of attention, and now the city is focusing on, you know, south of 69, which is fabulous. But there is a neighborhood that we're really working on just to the east of our lumberyard. They're at 12th and Clifford to about Lapeer Street in 12th. It's an old neighborhood. It's tired. It needs to be revitalized. Katie and I are committed to make a difference in that neighborhood around the lumberyard. Actually working with an old friend of yours, Phil Wise, because Phil was born and raised near the lumberyard, and he and his daughter are working with us on this endeavor. And it's a big project, and it's slow moving. The end goal is to revitalize that neighborhood and allow for another, you know, young people live in downtown. Eventually they're going to want a backyard, and we're going to have a place where as those younger folks want to move out from the downtown area, we'll have something very close to downtown with all the amenities of a single family home.
You've come to see Flint's ups and downs and experience them yourself. How would you describe Flint, Michigan to an outsider?
There's survivors. People in Flint can survive. There's also a great talent. There's great talent in Flint. The workers in Flint have great talent. Way back when, maybe the results would be different. To this day, it makes me sad when I see there's still a lot of people that hang in there and keep on swinging, and it pays off. You know, it does. As we're seeing today in Flint, all the work these people have been doing, that we've all been doing, is starting to pay off.
One of the words that's been used a lot in the interviews I've conducted is the term resilience, that Flint and its people have an amazing resilience to overcome the ups and downs, almost as if that's just normal life.
I totally agree. I think I used the word survivor. I think I told the guys early on during the COVID-19 shutdown at the state and whatever, I said, listen, we've survived 2 world wars and a depression. This flu is not going to stop us. You know, I didn't have to say that many times to the guys. It's natural to them. You know, they're resilient or they're survivors. Absolutely. You know, we're really focused on the positive side of things and how we can, you know, be prepared for that into the future, as well as what we can do to help with the revitalization of Flint. I try to stay away from the negative side of it. You know, over the years, it would have been very easy to get bogged down with all the reasons why we can't be successful. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses did do that and didn't make it. It's great when I go back to Flint and see some of those family names around town that, you know, are still there.
Flint has survived many transitions. I mean, we went from carriages to cars, and we've done a lot of other things in that period of time. Michigan Lumber represents, I think, the epitome of the adaptability of the city. Do you have any comment on that?
We did have to adapt a lot with General Motors leaving us as a customer. You know, when you're doing 30 to 40% of your business with one customer, that's not a good thing necessarily, because when you lose that one customer, you're losing 40% of your business. And that's, ironically, that's kind of what Flint did with GM, right? Way back when Flint invested their everything into General Motors. GM left Michigan Lumber, but they also left Flint to a good extent. You know, what is Flint going to be in the future? I mean, certainly education is going to play a role in that, and some level of manufacturing is going to play a role in it. What it looks like 10 or 15 years from now, I'm not sure.
Well, we're sure of one thing, it's going to look different than it does today.
Yeah, and I think it's going to look better than it does today. It's looking good, but I think it's going to continue on. When I got a call from my cousin to come back to Flint because he had problems, he was considering locking the gates and throwing in the towel, I just wouldn't have anything to do with it. I wasn't going to let it happen. It was time to change things and modify things so we could stay in business and keep those gates open. Generally speaking, that's the nature of the people in Flint. I mean, again, I don't know many people that have just quit. I know a couple that might have sold their businesses and retired, but not that just said, forget, I can't do it anymore. It's too difficult.
Are you a Flintstone?
I identify as a Flintstone, Arthur. Yes, absolutely.
And when you say you identify as a Flintstone, what does that mean? Obviously, you have an affinity for the city.
I do. I mean, Flint's been really good to my family and me. I've got great friends from Flint. And so it's in me. I want that same feeling to be passed along to Katie. And I think she gets it as well. You just hear about the history. You find yourself with a tie to it. And now with her work there, even more so. I can't explain it, Arthur. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's that going through those struggles with other people. I'm just not sure why that tie is like it is.
In 2000, when the term really got coined for Flint, was a group of kids from Flint went and won a national championship in the NCAA tournament. And they represented a certain thing for Flint. How did you see those kids, Mateen Cleaves and Morris Peterson and Charlie Bell? And
I thought they did a great job of representing the city, showing the talent that came out of it. And it never, we get a lot, from doing this radio show, you find a lot of stars from Flint, don't you? I mean, whether it be music or writers or heroes.
Exactly. When you look at that group that, they started calling themselves Flintstones, and what they represented was toughness, perseverance, strength, commitment. And they even got tattoos with the City of Flint on the side of their shoulder. On their shoulder.
As I said earlier, my grandparents and my mother, born and raised basically on the, off Court Street there. My grandfather used to say it's the only place where you can go from kindergarten through college in your own neighborhood. And when you think about that, you go off East Court Street and you can go all the way from kindergarten through college and in the same neighborhood. That's pretty unique. And then with the expansion of U of M downtown, that was critical. I think it's played a big role. And the demographic of downtown, when I'm there and I go downtown to grab a sandwich at lunch, it looks a lot different than it did 20 years ago when you and I would go downtown for a sandwich.
Now, Jerry, there are other assets in Flint. Tell me what you believe is an asset that's going to help Flint, that may be something people haven't thought about. Or
I think that the Mott Foundation downtown and the fact that they have remained focused on Flint has been huge to us. If it weren't for their focus, we would be way behind where we are today. I understand that the chamber and the convention bureau and the economic development type, they're all combined into one. And if it weren't for the Mott Foundation, I think a lot of those redevelopment efforts would have been kind of governed back just because of the flow of money from wherever it might be coming from. They've been very resourceful. They're using low-income housing tax credits. They use new market tax credits. They use historical credits. The Mott Foundation will play an equity participation in some of these ventures. And they've also been able to, to get the attention of investors or investments from companies. I think they're working on a grocery store downtown right now that's going to be an investment of the private sector in downtown. But I think it helps to have the Mott Foundation out on the point on that. It adds credibility to the downtown development efforts.
Flint has other assets, its strategic location. Does the fact that Flint's geographic location make a difference for it as it extends out into the next 50 years?
Absolutely. As time goes on, the city and the community will be able to find different ways to exploit that more. One of the things that we're seeing a lot happening in the commercial investment or real estate business is this last mile delivery with warehousing for online merchandisers and what have you. Flint's location at that intersection of those interstates could play a big role with. We've got to see where that leads us, but certainly the distribution warehousing ideas, during this COVID, it really been a lot of fuel's been put on that fire because of the mere quantities. We got to get one of those big distributors to build 1 million square feet up in Flint. That's what we need.
Now, we do have a good airport.
Yes. I think that the airports in communities like Flint often are underappreciated in the amount of economic stimulus that they can bring to the area. And in the case of Bishop Airport, I believe they've done a pretty good job of recognizing they can be an economic generator. They've got a good bit of freight shipment out of there, of course.
If you look at the future in Flint, you have a large philanthropic sector in Flint that actually has a lot of, it's got a headquarters of one of the largest foundations in the world. Taking all those assets, including the will of the people, where do you see all this headed? Some people have written it off.
I think as time goes on, exactly what industry it is, I don't know. But I think that Flint is getting ready for that, and they're getting ready for it by way of the educational system that you speak of, the different universities and community colleges. Talk about the transportation component to it. And again, as we rebuild the infrastructure of Flint, fix some roads, fix some overpasses, and get rid of some old buildings, make it a little bit more pleasant to drive around the downtown and what have you. Just a matter of time, those other businesses will start looking at it as potentially a destination to build at.
Another sector which you've probably spent more time thinking about is the housing sector in the Flint area. Where do you see that going in the next decade or two?
I see it coming back more towards the city of Flint. I think that, there's the people that want to be out in Fenton and what have you, but I think that the revitalization of some of these neighborhoods close into Flint will provide more of an urban setting. I think will be conducive to the younger people being there within the city limits of Flint, live there for a lengthy period of time and not move to Grand Blanc or Fenton or where have you. That's my hope anyhow.
The cultural center also, does that play a role in the housing market?
I would imagine. It certainly enhances the quality of life. Truly is amazing that over all these years it's maintained. So I would say yes. That's a component to the decision-making processes people do that when they're deciding on where to live. Another reason why I think people will come back to the East Court Street area or the neighborhood behind us. I think that there'll be a good reason to do that.
My prediction is in the next 20 years, Katie will be running Michigan Lumber and you will be probably sitting at the Shore Lake, Michigan facilities.
That would be fine with me, Arthur. And thank you, Arthur.